Hi, hello again. This is just another quick video about the book that I am currently reading, which is called After by Todd. It's quite late. Most people, normal people, I would say, is probably going to be asleep by now, but I'm an insomniac, so it doesn't really happen, which is why I find it quite difficult that I don't read as much as I would have liked to if I didn't have dyslexia. I keep saying that, and yet a lot of people probably are going to be thinking, but I seem to be reading this book quite accomplishedly. But again, I guess it's because of the age that the book is aimed at. So there isn't any really long or confusing words in the book that I don't understand. I am currently on chapter 42. So yeah, I've even shocked myself actually as to how sort of quickly I've been managing to sort of breeze through it. But I am still sort of struggling with trying to focus on the words on the pages because they just literally keep moving. It's like trying to read something when you are intoxicated, which is ironic considering the book is about alcohol. Abuse and people being drunk and falling over and, doing things because they're drunk and using it as an excuse. So again, it's interesting because it's completely different to the movie. There's things in the book that I've read which I think to myself, you know what, it would have been great if they'd put them in the movie. But they don't. And it's a bit of a spoiler alert because the actual relationship that Tess has with Steph, who is her roommate, is completely different in the movie as opposed to in the book. They're a lot more closer in the book. She even does this really girly thing where she gives her a makeover, gives her like this sort of goth style. And in the movie, you don't see that. All you see is Tess always being this like really innocent girl who dresses in clothes that her mom's probably brought for her whole life. She doesn't really understand or know how to sort of dress herself properly, but all she knows is that things have to be neat, they have to be tidy, they have to be presentable. There's a lot of emphasis on the fact that she's constantly folding her clothes. Everything has to be in order, everything has to be regimented. And you don't actually, at the moment, there hasn't really been much change to her apart from when she kind of lets her guard down and allows this makeover to happen. So again, you don't see her being so very planned and regimented in the movie, but in the book it's something that's very kind of drummed in from the beginning. It's, yes mum, I'll do this mum, yes I don't want to disappoint you, I'll do as you say, I'm going to your college, I'm going to make something of myself, I'm going to keep my room tidy, I'm going to keep my work tidy, I'm going to keep everything. And there seems to be a lot of pressure about this sort of perfection, and when she slips up or doesn't be as perfect and this little prim and proper, was even prim is a word that's used in the book to describe her, or that she feels guilty about it. And she's even jokes, Arden even jokes with her and says, have you got OCD or something? Because he's not used to people being so organised, I guess, in his life, even though you find they've kind of had a similar upbringing where they both have had parents who are actually fathers who have been absent from the age of 10 and were alcoholics. It goes to show that not everybody who encounters the same sort of situations deals with it the same way. Whereas she took it as, my dad's left me, I've got to look after my mom, I've got to be obligated, I've got to grow up now, I've got to be this perfect little daughter and make something of my life, otherwise I could end up like my mom. With Harden, it's different. You know, he goes out, he gets tattoos. He doesn't necessarily drink, although alcohol is something he, on occasions, has been known to use to console himself when he's feeling down or depressed. But again, I think in a way it actually makes him feel worse because, you know, he knows that what he's doing is wrong. He knows that he doesn't want to end up like his father. Yet, it's one of those things, I suppose, you know, because you've seen people do it, you're so used to people doing it that you kind of get into the same mindset, and that's what happens. So it is interesting because they do kind of have that sort of comparison and have that moment where it's like, well, hang on a minute. We're both into literature. We both had drunks as parents. We're both at the same college. You know, we kind of have a few things in common, but it still doesn't take away the fact that their relationship is a toxic relationship and it is very abusive. It's very controlling. And it's very constantly criticizing one another, constantly putting each other down, constantly trying to be one step ahead of the other person. And the thing as well that's kind of annoyed me a little bit is so far 3 movies have been mentioned in the book. And the first one was actually Sleepless in Seattle, but the words Sleepless in Seattle aren't mentioned. It just said Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. So again, I think, to be honest, you're going to have to be of a certain age to read this book. I wouldn't expect many 15-year-olds today to know Sleepless in Seattle. If you were to say, name a movie with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks in, I would probably say You've Got Mail, which in a way is quite similar to Sleepless in Seattle, because instead of phoning each other up via a radio show, they email each other, not knowing who is who, and her email address was Shop Girl. I can't remember what his was. And then they talk about The Vow, which, again, not everybody's going to know what The Vow is. I believe it is based on a true story, but I also have a feeling that it might be a Nicholas Sparks book. So again, I'd have to double check and then comment about that. But if they had said something like The Notebook, I mean, that would have been like a total cliche, because I know in certain films they have used that in the past as a rom-com, watching a rom-com, or, well, not so much a rom-com, or a romantic movie. And I must say, Nicholas Sparks, although I've never read any of his books, the first movie of his I ever saw was A Walk to Remember, and it has always been my favourite. Out of all of the movies, even The Notebook, A Walk to Remember has always been my favourite film based on a Nicholas Sparks book. And then obviously the next one they watch is Batman. It's not very clear which Batman it is. Sorry, I'm moving around again. Which Batman it is, trying to hide the logo on my shirt. Sorry, I wasn't aware that it was poking out. So, yeah, I mean, I am persevering with this book. I'm quite shocked as to how much I've read. I think being able to homeschool my son has helped because, you know, I can sit him at the table and he'll be like, Mom, and I'll give him assistance when I think he needs it. But he's done quite well with being like organised, self-directed study. So touch wood, that's gone quite well. So I was concerned, that I would have bitten off more than I could chew, and basically was saying, I'm going to read these 5 books within 40 days. How is that realistically going to happen? And so far, I think I have done quite well. But to be honest, I probably won't be reading any of it tomorrow, as I'm doing I'm helping out with some donations that have been dropped off for the Ukraine appeal. I had a phone call and they said, look, you know, could you come and help us, even if it was just for like half an hour. So I'm going to do that with my son, and we will put it down as a community service. Oh, sorry, I think I should try to sleep. So yes, it's going to be like his little bit of community service work. So it will kind of help him to understand more about the needs of other people. I mean, he's watched a little bit of the news recently. I know I'm digressing, but he's 6, so he doesn't fully understand what's going on in the world. And I says to him, you know, do you want to do some community work with mommy? And he went, is it to help the children in the war? And I said, yes. And he was like, okay, can I give them all my toys? And I was like, no, darling, they need other things. And he was like McDonald's. and it just sort of proves the innocence of children, and how I think in today's society that is lost so quickly. And again, going back to the book, I think, if you were to allow someone to read it under the age of 15, their innocence is going to be lost. Because, like I've said, there's a lot of adult content in this book. It's very dark. And to kind of say to people, oh, it's acceptable to have somebody be in an abusive relationship, which is what I think the book is kind of portraying a little. I don't know whether that's what the author was hoping for, or realised that maybe that's what she was subconsciously doing, or was happy for that to happen. But I do know in the movie, maybe to keep the ratings down, I've known them do that a lot when things go to the silver screen. Even things like Harry Potter, the age recommendation to watch the movies increased the darker the books got. And I think the same was with something like the Hunger Games, and also Maze Runner, and possibly Divergent series as well. But I think with the movie, the implications are there, that it's obviously that they have this sexual relationship, but you don't physically see anything. Whereas in the book, it's a lot more graphic, it's a lot more detailed. So again, as well, there was always this issue where, I'm talking over 2 years ago now, and this is again a very taboo subject, where there was articles in magazines and papers warning parents and saying to them, please educate your children. Because a lot of young people, they get into watching pornography. Let's just say it. Let's just throw the baby out with the bathwater, or the elephant in the room, whatever. And they see these images, and they think that is how you behave when you are in an intimate relationship with somebody. And one of the things that when I've not really spoken to anybody younger for quite some time, but when I used to teach at college, again, it was never something I ever heard or overheard any of the students talking about. But after I stopped teaching, it was something that was publicly published about how girls seem to have this preconceived notion that, it's quite a rude way to say it, but every hole's a goal for a guy. And if you're not prepared to engage in, vaginal or anal or even oral sex with that person, then they're not going to want to have a relationship with you. And I was quite shocked when I read this. I can't remember the article, but I do remember reading it. And I was quite disturbed, because when I was younger, that never would have been thought of. It never would have been spoken about. It was never even mentioned. And I think, again, because of society and because of the way people are brought up and people have grown up, it's sort of become normalised. I've not read that in this book. I don't know of any modern day authors or modern day books where anal sex has been talked about, unless it's been in a book where it's talking about homosexuality. Again, I believe it may or may not be in 50 Shades of Grey, but because I've not seen the movie or read the book, I can't comment. But I think it is disturbing when you've got a book which is then being made into a movie, and the movie is very romantic, very subtle in a way. There's a hint of control there, but nothing too sinister. Whereas in the book, it's shut up, get in the car, do as I say, or else. And I think to speak to somebody like that, or think that it's acceptable to talk to people that way, and then to kind of normalize it, isn't very positive, and it gives a false sense of what the book is actually about if you were to watch the film and then read the book afterwards, as opposed to the other way around. So it's probably about midnight now, if not later. So I'm going to say goodnight. That's all I seem to be doing in this book at the moment, is yawning as well. So maybe that's why I'm yawning and waffling. So thank you once again if you've managed to watch this video. And keep well, keep safe, and I will try and post at least once tomorrow. Thank you.